Somewhere in your first 3 years of life, you laughed for the first time. You took your first steps. You heard your mother's voice and knew instantly that it meant safety. You have no memory of any of it. Not one frame, not one sound. Your brain was recording the most important years of your development, and then it deleted almost all of it. Why would evolution do that? You have probably tried to reach back. Maybe you've closed your eyes and searched for something, anything, from before age 3, a face, a room, a smell. Most people find nothing but darkness. A few find fragments so blurry they can't tell if they're real memories or just stories they were told later. This isn't a personal failure. It isn't something wrong with you. It is universal. Ask 10 people about their earliest memory, and you'll get 10 different ages, but almost none of them will land before age 2.5. Some psychologists have found the average sits closer to 3.5. A few rare people claim memories from infancy, but when researchers test those claims, most turn out to be borrowed. A photograph. A family story repeated so many times it started to feel like a memory of the actual event rather than a memory of being told about it. Scientists have a name for the real phenomenon. They call it infantile amnesia. And the explanation is far stranger than simple forgetting. Here is what makes this interesting. Your brain wasn't broken during those years. It was working over time. A baby's brain forms new neural connections at a staggering rate faster than at almost any other point in life. By age 2, a toddler's brain has roughly twice as many synaptic connections as an adult's. So the problem was never a lack of activity. If anything, there was too much of it. The real question isn't why you forgot. It is why a brain that busy couldn't hold on to anything at all. Sigmund Freud was the first person to give this phenomenon a name, back in 1905. He called it infantile amnesia and proposed that children repress their earliest memories, burying them because they were tied to forbidden desires. That explanation sounds almost mythical now. Modern neuroscience has replaced it with something far more physical and far more fascinating. The real culprit sits deep in your brain in a small curved structure called the hippocampus. Think of the hippocampus as your brain's filing system. It doesn't just store memories, it takes fragments of experience scattered across different brain regions and binds them together into a single retrievable event. A smell, a sound, a face, a feeling, all stitched into one coherent memory you can pull up later. The problem is that this filing system takes years to fully build itself. In infancy, it is still under construction. Different regions inside the hippocampus mature at different speeds, and the parts responsible for linking a memory to a specific time and place are among the slowest to come online. You can think of it like a construction crew laying down the foundation of a house while people are already trying to move furniture in. The rooms aren't finished. Nothing placed inside them is going to stay where you left it. Here is the twist. Babies aren't incapable of learning. They're incredible at it. Give an infant a repeated routine, and they'll anticipate it. Show a baby a stranger's face twice, and they'll recognize it the second time. That is memory. But it is a different kind of memory than the one you use to recall your 5th birthday party. Researchers call it implicit memory, the kind that shapes behavior and instinct without ever surfacing as a story you can tell. What babies lack is explicit memory, the kind wrapped in narrative in time, in the sense that this happened to me. And explicit memory depends almost entirely on a mature hippocampus. This is why your body can carry knowledge your mind can't explain. Adults who were adopted as infants sometimes report a pull toward foods, sounds, or even languages connected to their birth family, with no conscious memory attached to any of it. A toddler who was startled by a dog before age 2 might grow into a child, who has simply always been afraid of dogs, and no one, including the child, can say why. The experience left a groove. It just never left a story. Your earliest memories may not have faded away. They may have been actively erased, overwritten by the very growth that was building your mind. That is a hard idea to sit with. The years your parents call formative, the years that supposedly shape your personality forever, might be the years your brain was least equipped to hold on to a single one of them. But here is the detail that changes the whole picture. Not remembering something is not the same as it having no effect on you. Psychologist Patricia Bauer, who has spent decades studying memory development in children, found that even when kids can't consciously recall an early event, their bodies and behaviors sometimes still carry a trace of it. A child who experienced something distressing before age 3 might show anxiety around similar situations later, with zero conscious memory of the original event. The memory of the story is gone. The memory of the feeling isn't. This is why some psychologists argue that infantile amnesia isn't really amnesia in the way you think of it. Nothing was lost. It just was never filed in a format your adult mind can open. Now here is where it gets even more counterintuitive. You'd expect the cutoff for memory to be a hard fixed line, like a curtain that drops at exactly the same age for everyone. It isn't. Psychologist Carol Peterson at Memorial University of Newfoundland has spent years interviewing children about their earliest memories and then checking back in with them years later to see which ones survived. What she found was that the age of a person's earliest memory isn't just about brain maturity. It is shaped by language, by culture, and by how much adults around a child talk about the past. Peterson's research suggests that children whose parents frequently discussed shared past events, asking things like, "Do you remember when we went to the beach and the wave knocked you over?" ended up retaining earlier memories than children whose families rarely revisited the past out loud. Talking about an event in detail again and again seems to help weld it into a form the hippocampus can actually preserve. Memory, in other words, isn't just something that happens to you. It is something that gets built, partly through repetition, partly through language, partly through other people. Peterson also found something that surprised even her. When she compared children across different cultures, the age of earliest memory shifted along with how much a culture valued personal narrative. In families and communities where storytelling about the individual past was common, children's earliest memories tended to reach further back. In cultures that emphasized group experience over personal narrative, the earliest memories tended to start later. Your ability to remember your own childhood, it turns out, isn't just a biological clock ticking inside your skull. It is partly a habit passed down to you by the people who kept asking, "Do you remember when?" This connects to something psychologist Nora Newcombe has emphasized in her research on cognitive development. A toddler doesn't just need a working hippocampus to form a lasting memory. They need a sense of self-stable enough to organize experience around, a working vocabulary to encode what happened into language, and an understanding of time itself, the concept that yesterday is different from right now. Most of those tools aren't fully online until somewhere between ages 3 and 7. Before that, a child is living entirely in the present tense, experiencing everything vividly and losing nearly all of it the moment it passes. So think about what that means for the years you can't remember. You weren't unconscious. You weren't a blank slate waiting to begin. You were fully alive, fully feeling, fully responding to the world, forming attachments, learning language at a pace you'll never match again, absorbing the emotional temperature of your household. All of it shaped you. None of it left behind a story you can retell. There's a modern mirror to this that most people never notice. Watch how a small child processes something scary or wonderful or new. They don't reflect on it. They don't narrate it to themselves the way you do as an adult, turning every event immediately into a sentence in your internal monologue. They just live it completely without commentary. In a strange way, that is the same thing meditation teachers and therapists spend years trying to get adults to relearn: presence without narration, experience without the constant need to file it away as a story about yourself. You spent your first 3 years doing exactly that effortlessly, because your hippocampus hadn't yet developed the machinery to make you self-conscious about your own timeline. You were, in the truest sense, living entirely in the moment. Then gradually, the tool that lets you turn experience into narrative came online, and you started building the story you now call your life. Everything before that point still shaped the person telling the story. You just can't read those chapters. There is something almost generous about that arrangement. If you think about it long enough, your earliest years, the years when you were most helpless, most dependent, most shaped by forces entirely outside your control, are the years you were spared from having to carry around as conscious memory. You don't remember the moments you cried and no one came right away. You don't remember every stumble, every small fear, every confusing adult conversation that happened over your head. What you kept instead was something quieter, a baseline sense of whether the world, on the whole, felt safe or unsafe, whether people, on the whole, could be trusted to show up. That baseline is arguably more important than any single memory could ever be, and it was built during the exact years your conscious mind was offline. So the next time you wish you could remember your first birthday, or the sound of your parents' voices when you were an infant, or your very first steps, consider this instead: you didn't lose those years. Your brain was too busy building itself to file them away as memories. And somewhere in the wiring it left behind, in the way you flinch, or trust, or feel safe, those years are still there, not as a story, as you.